I would now like to give a brief lecture on communications and public speaking. If you're the person to which the original video pertains, if you've made it this far, kudos to you, man. But I'd like to explain why, objectively, what you're doing here is ridiculous. When you're trying to communicate to people, you want to keep it as you know, you want to keep it as simple, concise, and succinct as possible. The reason why you want to do this is it conveys a sense of consistency, of stability. Nothing quite says, I'm going to give you an absolute statement, my absolute opinion on something. You can't really do that and then fuck around a whole lot with the language and shit, right? It begins to make you sound intellectually dishonest and morally disingenuous when you begin to fuck around with the language for the fun of it, right? Now, you do this funny little thing. You understand, maybe not, actually, you know what, fuck that. You understand public speaking and communication. You do. And you've learned well the dark side of it, which is just twisting shit. And what one of my idols, Patrice O'Neill, liked to say, wording me up. You're wording me up. Why are you wording me up? Why do you think I'm going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe of you trying to word me up with all this extra shit? How about we get away from all the extra horse shit and we boil it down to simplicity? That way, you can convey your message in a manner that will make sense to the broadest audience possible. Right? You boil it down to the simplest of terms, everybody can kind of understand it more often than not. And that's what you're going for when you're trying to give an online lecture or a vlog or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. When you're trying to communicate your ideas to people, you want to make it as simple as absolutely possible. That way there's very little room for debate. Alright? So, one of the first things you want to do when you begin this process is you want to state specifically the rules of engagement. When I use this term, this is what I'm referring to. When I make reference to a pedophile, I'm talking about somebody who has molested a child. Now, you can say, well, that's a child molester, a pedophile. No. I'm taking all of that extra garbage and throwing it out so I can maintain my consistency, right? And so I can maintain my intellectual honesty with what I will say from this point on. Everybody understands what I'm talking about. I've laid the ground rules for you. I have told you the conditions in which I am operating. This is my definition for this word. And this is my definition for this word. From here, this is what we're dealing with. I punctuated this by saying what you're trying to do is play a semantic game, and I'm not playing it. You see, I'm setting another boundary here. I'm not going to listen to further semantic arguments because I am going to, from this point on, render all of them moot. Moot! They don't mean anything anymore because it's all that extra garbage. And I'm throwing that out to maintain my consistency and my intellectual honesty going forward. I further highlight this desire by saying we're gonna be honest here. And from that point on, I gave an honest lecture. And I said discussion previously, and that's incorrect. I gave a lecture. You can call it a vlog, call it a lecture. I'm calling it a lecture, right? Just because I want to lend gravitas to it. So that I, too, can prove that I can play the fun word game, right? It's a lecture. I'm lecturing you. I'm above you, speaking to you as an ignorant person. I'm lecturing here. Okay? And I'm establishing the groundwork for what I'm about to say and laying out boundaries. And then I proceeded with my point. I feel that I covered all of the same bases that you brought up. I feel that I have addressed every point you made. In my original video, before I even read any of your comments from today, I already addressed every single one of your comments from today. You simply chose to ignore those in lieu of repeatedly telling everybody, making a point to tell every single commenter that commented a relevant comment to that video, that not only were you the guy, you were the guy. It's me. He's talking about me. Me. Look at me. Everybody look at me. Everybody look at me. He's talking about me in this video. Go and read my comment. I don't care. I've deleted it. But I'm encouraging you to look at it. Because I don't realize, not being a YouTuber, as I'm guessing that you are not realizing that YouTube has this funny little thing that it does, where it archives your comments. I still can see it. You can delete it and point to it all you want and go, oh, it's gone. But I still have it. Like, it's funny to me that you even bothered to write all that shit out just to delete the thread. Like, I would have had more respect for you, like, honestly, had you simply replied, I'm going to delete this thread and then direct everybody to this thread that no longer exists so that I can blame you for deleting it to try and cover up what I said because what I said rocked you so much. No, see, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. See, this is experience. This is my privilege that I have here. This is my privilege. I've earned the privilege of knowledge, and I have that over you, apparently. Or maybe I'm wrong, and it's a conspiracy theory, and I'm looking way too deep into it. And maybe, I don't know. But I was looking at the video. Like, I followed your link to the video. And yeah, everybody else can do it. I followed your link to the video. And I saw your one comment, which was fucking ridiculous. And I didn't see the other one. I looked and I looked. It's all on film. I didn't see it. So what happened? I don't know. But I still saw it. I mean, it's all archived for me because YouTube is good like that. One of the few ways. Nevertheless, gotta give them credit. So, like, dude, I'm better than you at this because I'm a trapper. It's one of my faults, and I don't like to admit it. And Joy will tell you all about it, because boy did I get hurt. But nevertheless, I like to trap people. I like to lure them in. I like to give them all the... Nah, that's probably a bad one to say. I like to just set motherfuckers up. Because I'm better than you at this. Like, I see through all of the shit. I do. I dissect it on this channel constantly. If you're going to be an NPC, you better learn about the PC you're trying to actively, like, fuck with. Because I already know everything about you. You are basic. Get a better act. Or find a better target. I know. I only have, like, 2,300 subscribers. My channel is stalled. I get it. And I like it that way. Because it affords me the ability to come across people like you who think that that somehow means I'm going to be ineffective at this. Or that I'm going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. I'm going to let you word me up. It ain't going to happen. Sorry. No. So, yeah. This, by the way, this is why I named my channel the Egocast. Because I am so correct here. Like, there really is no argument based the way that I have laid it out. Touching children inappropriately is bad 100% of the time. It's proven. You yourself admitted it. So how about we not play around with shit? How about we define things simply? If you are having fantasies about children that don't involve having them, raising them properly, loving them with every ounce of your being, providing for them better than you provide for yourself, making sure that they have all of the stability and structure and discipline, and if your fantasy involves anything other than all that good shit, that is pedophilia. The fantasy of it, the fetishizing of it, that's pedophilia. Pedophilia being a word that describes a certain thought process. That is how I am defining it. Simple, right? So then whenever I refer to pedophilia from this point on, you understand what I'm talking about. I've defined it for you. I've told you my limits, my hard red line limits on where I'm at with this. And then I described a pedophile as somebody who has committed the act of pedophilia, that has acted upon that fantasy and has destroyed the life of a child. And therein lies the rub. I want to drive home that point. All the trash, we're getting rid of that. Because this is such a serious topic to me that I'm driving home the point, the destruction of the lives of children. And I'm setting that as a very definite boundary for the remainder of the lecture. Because I don't want there to be any confusion about what I mean when I refer to a pedophile. I want you to understand the definition I'm working with. All the extra trash, I don't fucking care. And I left in the talk about the gray area. I addressed it. I acknowledged it. And I gave a statement on it. If you see an attractive 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 13-year-old, I mean, you know, girls these days, and you see that girl and you go, damn, she's hot. And then your brain recognizes and carrying a backpack and it's around school time letting out. So, yeah. Not gonna scream out the window, hey baby, to her, because that's a kid. Then you're not a pedophile. Like, you're not a pedophile. You're a normal fucking person. That isn't pedophilia. That's normal. I see what my brain registers to me as sexually attractive. But let's consider this further because we're not animals. Upon further examination, I've noticed that that is a not pursuable pursuit. So I will choose to not pursue it because it is wrong. You're a normal person. If you see that 13-year-old every day, though, and one day you decide to fucking kidnap her and fuck her, you're a pedophile. And that's a crime, and you should be buried under the prison. I'm not leaving room here to fuck around. But you're trying to wiggle in cracks that don't exist. Why? It's very odd behavior. So there you go. That's how communication works. Public speaking. When you're giving a lecture of some sort. Or a vlog. Whatever you want to call it. You set the rules for the talk. And then you give your perspective. And when I receive a comment upon the perspective I'm giving, I generally expect that people are going to comment within the rules of engagement that I have set for this discussion. Especially when I have gone to the effort to count dogs to display to you how serious I am. As stupid as that fucking sounds to me right now. Nevertheless, this is all under comedy. I consider myself a comedy channel. What do you want from me? This is a heavy fucking subject. That's another thing. You generally want to lighten things when you're doing public speaking. You don't want to get drummed down too much with the disgusting details of it, because that tends to make people go, it's early in the morning, or I just got home from work, or I'm about to go to bed, or I just had dinner. Like, you give people reasons to not want to watch, they don't fucking watch. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I just came up with the video title. I just came up with the title. So God damn it. All right. So here, look, listen. I'm not trying to cast dispersion. I'm being insulting, and I'm being insulting on purpose. And the reason why I'm being insulting is because you deserve it. Because you have decided to purposefully breach the rules of engagement that I established, and you have decided to play around and try and muddy the waters. And you've tried to do it with a subject so sensitive as this. Had you done this with Donald Trump and the wall, I'd have probably told you what a dummy I thought you were in the fucking comment, and I wouldn't have bothered with you, and I would have just moved on with my life. But you threw up a semantic argument, and when I addressed and criticized it to death, you decided to retort with the same semantic argument. That's insulting to me. Personally, I find that insulting. So don't expect me to fight with the gloves on from that point. You have established the tenor of this engagement. I was extremely respectful to you in the first video. I spent an hour of my time. I'm spending another hour and a half or more of my time, plus editing, doing this. And I believe I'm giving you far more than you deserve as far as respect. The fact that I'm addressing you at all. But, like, don't think that I don't see the insult in, apparently you didn't understand me. What I meant was the same fucking thing I said before. No. I understood you the first time. And I addressed that when I called your comment a semantic argument, and I said I was taking the trash and throwing it the fuck out. So, if you would like to actually address the point I made, I'll be happy to read it. But I don't think you're gonna. Here's what I predict. You're gonna throw up another fucking horse shit semantic argument. And I'll read it. And most likely, I'll either put LOL or I'll put some goofy emoji, an equal sign, and /. Who knows? It all depends on what you say, how absurd it is. But you won't get any more attention like this from me again. I think that I have not only destroyed your argument, primarily because I outright just threw it away because it was trash. And then I established my argument. I think my argument fairly destroys any possibility of debate because I stated things in extraordinarily simple terms that I adhered to. You did not in your response. You threw up the same exact semantic argument. I then critiqued your behavior over the span of the day. The copy-pasted comments, the multitude of them, the blatant foolishness of it all, and your repetition of the nonsense you said the first time. And almost agreeing with me, like when it comes down to it, you pretty much, you gave scientific definition, psychological definition to the things that I was using in generalities. You described it all the same way. So you just took my argument and muddied it up a bunch. I'm now critiquing you for being kind of a dishonest person. Kind of a manipulator. Which I can't necessarily prove, but I have very good evidence of. And that you're making an extraordinarily inappropriate argument. And it is my belief that you are doing this to in some way insinuate that the distinction isn't between a person who has committed an act and who hasn't. It is now a distinction of a person who has committed an act and a person who hasn't committed an act, but has thought about committing the act. And a person who has not committed the act, but has thought of the act, but only within a certain range of age, but no. No. Because now you're trying to cast a very wide net. The reason you're doing this is because it's a manipulation. You're trying to allege that anybody could be a pedophile. You see that girl? You think she's attractive? She's 14. You're a pedophile. That's pedophilia. You thought that 14-year-old was hot. You're a pedophile. No. Oh no, you'd say, well, you're a hemophile, or whatever the fuck. And I don't care. Because you're not. You're a normal person. Now, if you're looking at a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and you're having those fantasies, you're a unconvicted pedophile. You're a loaded gun sitting on a table. You have the potential to cause great harm. And so long as you don't act on it, you're not a pedophile. You're a normal person that, like everybody else, has instinctual whatever, or perhaps learned whatever. I haven't really gone into great in-depth research on how our sexual desires necessarily form. From what I have been told, it is a learned thing that gets established, I think, fully around the age of 14 or something like that. Don't kill me on the details. I'm telling you up front, I don't have all of them. It's been a long time since I listened to that episode of fucking, what was it, with Dr. Drew? The sex fucking talk radio show that Dr. Drew did. This is where I'm getting this from. So fucking whatever. This is what I've heard. And I don't know how accurate this is. I'm just saying. So, that would lead me to believe that it has at least some possibility of an argument of being a learned thing, that it winds up developing over a course of time. And one would have to ask, what are the factors that go into that? Is there abuse of that person? Because that could link sexual stimuli with a severe shift in power dynamics beyond the power dynamics that already exist, which are severe. Adults hold severe weight over children. We're adults. Kids are told all the time, listen to adults. And kids lack nuance. They have this thing called innocence. And everything is very black and white to kids. It's good or bad. Doing this is bad. That's why I don't do it. Sometimes I do it, but it's bad. You know? And adults have the power of, I'm an adult. There's already a severe power differential there. And then to tip those scales further and to link it with sexual stimulus, I can see how that would develop in a young child's mind that this is how sex is performed. And as they grow older, their understanding of how sex is performed shifts the power dynamic. Because they're not really getting sexual arousal. That's why I say sexual stimulus instead of sexual arousal. I'm being very deliberate with my words here. I say that because sexual arousal is something that is generally linked with sexual pleasure. I seriously doubt there's a whole lot of fucking pleasure in what goes on there. Right? So, it's sexual stimuli, not arousal or pleasure. Those other things, they're like your first argument. They're trash. You just throw them out. They don't exist for that kid anymore. That's part of the destruction. Right? Because evil propagates itself as fast as it destroys itself. Right? So, you do that to a kid who grows into an adult who still sees sex as a severe power differential between an adult and a child. So naturally they would fantasize about doing that to a child. I can see that argument being made. So one can say best to nip it in the bud. That's why I like to be very specific when I give these little talks. So, this brings the usual trilogy that comes from me getting really riled up by a commenter to an end I believe. I believe that I have left no wiggle room. I believe that your only response is going to be the exact same thing you've already said. Because if you're willing to play by my rules, I've left you no ground to stand upon. Your argument is flawed in its design, purpose, scope, meaning, and any other words you just want to use just for fun. It's trash. And like trash, I threw it away and then told you what I believed. You threw more trash on the ground. I'm done picking up after you. I have no more use for your commentary, your comments, because I just don't think there's going to be any value in it. But I will read them from here on out. They will give me a chuckle, because you are a joke to me.
And why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up.
Alright, look. I was talking to a friend, and I was talking about what has happened. And I had occasion to click on that link again, go back to the video, and lo and behold, I saw the original comment. What can I say? I wasn't recording the screen when I was filming earlier. I didn't see it. I looked and I looked. I didn't cut it either. I didn't cut any of it. I left everything in because I genuinely did look. I didn't see it. So I in my own rage and sickness, I went off half-cocked, and I alleged some things that may not be entirely accurate. So I will apologize for that and the dramatics therein, but nevertheless, it really doesn't mean anything other than I went off half-cocked and rambled on some nonsense about something that was not entirely accurate. I still read the fucking comment. All of your comments. I've read all of your comments as to the point when I filmed that video. So you can't really shit on me too much, because it wasn't like I said, looks like I deleted his comment, and then I didn't fucking read it. I still found it, still read it in its entirety, and it's still there, as far as I know. So here we are. Well, you know. that certainly put a fucking stitch in my giddy up. But nevertheless, I still feel pretty resolute in my absolute correctness in what I have stated to be. So there you go.